በዓሌት ሃይማኖት ዝሰመረ ሕግ እንዳባ ቀደም ዝነበረ ክሂዶሞ ጽቡቕ ዝገበረ ክሂዶሞ ጽቡቕ ዝገበረ ጻማቓል ሱኼስ ታማቐረ ኣለኹ እንደ ነሕዋ ደጌረ ኣለኹ እንደ ነሕዋ ደጌረ شبد بدأتي ومدى الحق توري بترحكم مسيز بين سعدري شبد 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 دكي بلي خم والهادي تادي حزب غير يدرع يزيد غفدي عنقو طانا سنت فكيدنا بعقلي قنا يتحملنا لمخاط مالي قنا يتحملنا قنا يتحملنا قنا يتحملنا لمخاط مالي أني تحقيسو يلن زغسني أبقى دمكتاتي حجز قناني أيتن نقرن كندي تلفز تقبري إذن مغنغا متالين واري بجاهز بحقر بس قادك يقري لترحكم مسيه زبيون عتري دكي دكي بلي يري دكي بلي نمسا كلنا عدي تقبلي حسوم نبرا سدت سلاعينا خيدو مع سقيمنا كي يريناتي ولدو دكي دكي بلي يري دكي بلي نمسا كلنا عدي تقبلي
I'm a Swedish Eritrean activist who was born in Sweden, Stockholm. I'm here because 16 years ago, my uncle was imprisoned without a trial in Eritrea. He was one out of 10 journalists who were imprisoned, who were taken from his home, separated from his children, his pregnant wife, and has been in prison ever since. We are all here because we demand the release of these journalists who were imprisoned in September of 2001. But these journalists were not the only journalists who were imprisoned. A group of politicians and military officials wrote a letter demanding democracy in Eritrea and were also taken from their home and have been imprisoned ever since. We are here because their family deserves justice. Taking people from their homes without giving them a trial violates international law. And Eritrea, as a sovereign nation, has a responsibility to abide international law at all times, and not just when it pleases them. Eritrea keeps on insisting that Ethiopia is violating international law by occupying parts of Eritrea, the Eritrean country. If you're going to argue that another country is violating international law, you need to stop abiding it yourself. We're not saying that Ethiopia is not occupying or violating international law, but that does not give you an excuse to imprison journalists and keep them there for more than 16 years. My cousins were forced to grow up without their dad. Other children were forced to grow up without their parents. Ethra Solomon, who was a part of the government who wrote letters against the president, has been imprisoned for more than 16 years. His wife was imprisoned in 2003, 2 years after him. His children had to grow up without any parents. The Eritrean government has a responsibility towards their people to act towards their safety and their well-being. You cannot continue to act as a police state and imprison people simply because they do not agree with your opinions. As a country, as a government, you have a responsibility to abide not only international law, but human rights law. And these are all treaties that you have signed and promised to abide for. Eritrea has been independent now since 1991. But we don't see any democracy, and we don't see any freedom for our people. Huh? I don't know. Okay. 16 years is a long time. Being in prison for 16 years in Eritrea without getting a trial is criminal. And as a criminal government, you need to be held accountable. But I'm not only speaking to you as a government, I'm speaking to you as human beings. You all probably have children, you have mothers, you have fathers, you have relatives. And you're working in that government, supporting a president who are imprisoning fathers, mothers, sisters, and brothers, taking them away from their families, their friends, and their colleagues. You can pretend that Eritrea is paradise, you can pretend that Eritrea is heaven, but that doesn't change the fact that you're living here in the United Kingdom. Not only as diplomats, because you were forced to leave Eritrea because of your job, but because you think it's more comfortable to live here and have all the benefits that you have in this country. Your children are going to schools in the United Kingdom. They're not going to schools in Asmara. Your children are getting social service help from the United Kingdom's government, not from the Eritrean government. You're getting the benefits from this country, but refusing to give it to the people in your own. Being in prison for 16 years is unimaginable. It is a violation against international law and human rights, but it's also a violation against the very core values of the very movement that you guys represent. The EPLF movement fought for democracy, human rights, and justice for the Eritrean people, not for the criminal state that you now are representing. These 10 journalists that were imprisoned did not only represent themselves and the ideas that they believed that the Eritrean people deserved, but they were part of a movement to bring a better life for the Eritrean people. Journalists, for example, like my uncle, Siyum Tahaya, David Isaac, and other people working, used to say that if we don't give them a voice, then who will? They were fighting to give people who did not have a voice in the country of Eritrea a voice. But you decided to lock up that voice. You decided that these people do not deserve a voice. Because the country that you represent is the only country in Africa that does not have any free media. For more than 10 years, you have been on the bottom of the press freedom list that's been compiled by Reporters Without Borders. At the bottom, after countries such as China, North Korea, and Cuba. There is no freedom in this country because you don't think that the Eritrean people deserve a voice. You can speak on behalf of yourself, you can speak on behalf of your own opinions, but you can't speak on the behalf of the Eritrean people because if you don't give them a voice, then we don't know what they want. These journalists were trying to be a voice for people who wanted a better life. For students who were protesting policies that you were implementing. For former female fighters who were cleaning your streets while you were getting military and political positions. They were trying to be a voice for people who were trying to speak up, but you refused them a voice. This is the government. You represent the government, but does not represent the people, but your own interests and your own president, besides Porky. But he's not our president because he does not represent us. The president of Eritrea, Isaias Porky, is a criminal and he deserves to be held accountable for the crimes that the Eritrean people have had to suffer for more than 25 years. My uncle Siyum Tahaya was in prison today 16 years ago. He's been in prison for 16 years and his family has not got any answers or has not been able to ask any questions. When his children tried to leave Eritrea, the Eritrean government refused to give them an exit visa, even though the French government had decided to accept them. The Eritrean government said that unless you give us the signature of your father, we're not going to let you leave Eritrea. But where is their father? Where Eritrean embassy in France called the police on these children. They were 12 and 10 years old. They called the police and said that terrorists have come into our embassy. Get your team. The police came with guns prepared for terrorists, and when they got to the embassy, 2 children were standing there, simply asking for their father. We understand if you don't agree with everyone who lives in your country. You understand if you think that these people might be a threat to your national security. But unless you have legal backup for what you are saying, if you have any kind of proof for what you're arguing for, we cannot simply look at you and accept these crimes that you're committing against the Eritrean people. My uncle's been in prison for 16 years today. 16 years. And you won't even tell his children where their father is. What you are doing is criminal by any measure. And if you don't agree with international law, then you are not a sovereign, independent nation that you are claiming to be. You have signed treaties, you have attended conferences, you're basing your whole oppression upon the concept of international law. You're arguing that because Ethiopia is invading your territory, which is true, but you're arguing this on the basis of international law. Because Ethiopia is invading your territory, you are forced to imprison politicians and journalists. At the same time, you refuse to give these people a trial. You refuse to give these people and their families any answers. That is hypocrisy at its finest, and that is criminal. Every single person working at the embassy have their own reason to why they're doing it. You might need the money. You might not get a job anywhere else. You might love the president, Isaias Afwerki. But you need to know that what you're doing now will forever be recorded in history. And when the future people of Eritrea look back at you, every single person representing and working at the embassy, they will spit at your names. Because just as how you have spit at these people's lives, at every single person Eritrean living in Eritrea, attempting to flee this country, is how you will be remembered. An Eritrean activist, Yolino, once said that it's very easy to support people in power. Very, very easy. But it's hard to confront people in power. It's much harder. And what these Eritreans and these citizens here have done, who represent and agree with the democratic values, is stand up against your power. Because just like power, just like Ethiopia was reigning Eritrea once, power will disappear. Power will go away. But your mark in history will stay forever. And what you're doing to this country, I heard a lot of people saying that these people can't be Eritreans. But how can one person, how can people like you, how can you do this to your own country, to your own people? And all of you know it. Every single one of you are trying to get out your own people. You're trying to get out your family, your parents, you're sending them money. You're trying to get everyone out of the country at the same time as you're representing it. Because whatever reason you have for working for this government, your own greed is always bigger than the love to your people. See, we Eritreans who are opposing the government, we don't hate Eritrea. It's not that we're not patriotic or we're not nationalistic. It's that we love the Eritrean people. And we believe that our people deserve better. Every single person supporting the government, every single person working for the government, every single person inside there looking at us right now, and every single person claiming to be neutral and not have an opinion when it comes to the situation in Eritrea are all selfish. You cannot be neutral when it comes to the situation in Eritrea. Because when you're neutral, you're staying on the side of the Eritrean government. What's happening in Eritrea is not simply a disagreement of politics. It's clear, it's brutal, human rights violations. We have 10 chairs here today. These 10 chairs represent the 10 journalists that were imprisoned between the 18th of September 2001 and the 23rd of September 2001. All these 10 people, Tamaski Gabriel, Yusuf Muhammad Ali, Dawud Isak, Badhan Ayla, Badhaus Abhabtiba, Dawud Abdul Amal Al-Aslam, Saeed Abdul Kar, Fataya Joshua Yohannes, and Siyum Sahaya were all 10 journalists who opposed and criticized policies of the Eritrean government. None of them explicitly called for anything illegal or radical. These 10 people simply asked questions. They asked, well, you maybe have another way of conducting our politics in our country. They asked, why are you killing students protesting your politics? They asked questions. And for these questions, they have been in prison for 16 years. Out of these 10 journalists, no one has been released. No one has been able to meet their families. No one has been able to get out or get any help or support from any organization or any legal aid. Out of these 10 journalists, we don't know anything about how they're doing, where they are, or even if they're still alive. The only information we have is from prison guards who have fled the country and given their testimonies. From what we know, only 4 out of the 10 journalists that were imprisoned are still alive. The rest of the 6, we don't know anything about, except what the prison guard told us, that they unfortunately have passed away, been brutally murdered by the Eritrean government. But we have not received any bodies, we have not received any pictures, we have not received anything to prove these claims. But apart from this prison guard, we have no other information. So we are here today to honor, to support, and to protest for these people. The 10 journalists that were imprisoned, the 50 politicians who wrote a letter, and the thousands of people who are imprisoned in Eritrea today. Out of these 10 journalists, they say that only 4 people are still alive. Well, if they're still alive, if they're still fighting in prison, so will we. We are here today, not because we think it's fun to come out on a Thursday afternoon in the cold and stand here in a t-shirt, but because we think our people deserve better. These people do not only represent themselves and their values, they represent the voices of the people that you are trying to silence. The people of Eritrea do not have a voice. If you do not agree with the Eritrean government, you are not free to speak up for yourself. If you do, well, then you are in prison. The prisons they have in Eritrea are gruesome. They're illegal and they're inhumane. The prison that my uncle Siyum Sahaya is supposedly in Aida prison in Eritrea, is in the middle of the desert, where it's freezing cold in the night and brutally hot during the day. But all journalists, all people that are in prison in Eritrea are not in the same prison as my uncle and these other 3 journalists are reported to be alive, and the politicians too that are there. These people, some of them are in shipping containers. Some of them are in underground prisons. Some of them, we have no idea where they are because they've never managed to flee or become free from these prisons. Because normal people who are just simply attempting to leave a country, normal people who just opened their mouth in a cafe and said something against the government, these people are being imprisoned for simply speaking their mind. These people you think don't constitute such a big threat, so you put them in the capital city. You put them in underground prisons. You put them in containers. And after a while, some of them are released. But these people that we represent here, these 10 chairs, these 10 journalists, the politicians that were in prison this week, 16 years ago, they were a high threat. They were powerful. They were one of you at one point. They were part of the movement to liberate and democratize Eritrea. And it was because they were a threat, because they were powerful, because you knew they wanted to give a voice to the Eritrean people. That's why you decided to imprison them. See, this week does not only represent the 16-year anniversary since these 10 journalists and the politicians were imprisoned. This week marks the day since Eritrea and the government that you represent officially became a dictatorship. 16 years ago, they shut down all free press. You haven't called the National Assembly since. And journalists, politicians, citizens who simply have spoken their minds have been silenced. This week marks 16 years since Eritrea became a dictatorship. And since every single one of you working for the embassy, every single person supporting the government, every single person being so-called neutral became supporters of a criminal, brutal, inhumane dictator. This week marks 16 years since my cousin's father was taken from their home and been locked up ever since. This week marks 16 years since my dear friends, Han and Mazen, their siblings, father was taken from their home and imprisoned ever since. See, this is not just about politics. This is not just about a vague idea or concept about human rights or giving a voice to a people that deserve it. This is about families, about friends, about colleagues, about mothers, fathers, daughters, and sons who haven't seen their loved ones for 16 years. And this might mark the 16-year anniversary since the crackdown of the press, since the shutdown of the free media and the imprisonment of prominent figures such as members of the G15 group and members of this group of journalists. But there are more people who have been imprisoned way before 2001. There are more people, even more people who have been imprisoned after that. You, as Eritreans, have a responsibility towards your people. Not only the people living in Eritrea, but the people who have families in Eritrea. But at this point, you're not valuing any Eritrean lives. The only life that you are capable of feeling any kind of affection for or sympathy is the life of the president of your country. And that, my dear friends, that's not patriotism and that's not nationalism. That's greed, that's selfishness, and that is not what it's called to run a country. Because as a government, your only responsibility is towards your people. As soon as that responsibility fades away, your legitimacy as a government is gone. And the day that we clearly knew that your passion and your love for the Eritrean people was gone was this week, 16 years ago. So as an Eritrean citizen, as an Eritrean human being, I am here protesting for my uncle, for his children, for these journalists, for the politicians that have been imprisoned, for the prisoners in the country, for the women being raped in the military, for the men being tortured in the military, for the women being imprisoned underground in containers, for the men being imprisoned underground and in containers, for every single person attempting to flee, for every person that managed to flee that you refuse to help, for every single Eritrean human being that has been neglected, that has been stomped upon, that has been spitted on, that life has meant nothing to you. It means everything to me. It means everything to these people standing right here. And that is why we're protesting. Because we think that our people deserve better. Our people, the Eritrean people, deserve better than what you have been giving them for the past 16 years. So I've met a lot of people that support your government. They come to events, you send them to events, you send them with questions, you send them with comments, you send them to harass us so that we will stop. A lot of these people, they have the same ideas, they have the exact same narrative, the narrative that you've given them. You say that democracy takes time to build. They ask me, well, you're from Sweden, how long did it take for your government to become democratic? They tell me the United Kingdom, how long did it take for them to become a democratic nation? They ask me, was it the United Kingdom? Didn't they have colonies? Do you really support the system of this country? See, is your only objective to follow the lead of these Western countries? Do you believe that you can only achieve democracy by following the pathway that the United Kingdom has set up? The United Kingdom, their government has a despicable history, a history that we are a part of. We were a part of the United Kingdom for 10 years after the Second World War. They treated our nationals worse than the Italian government did for 50 years. This is not a pathway that we want to follow. The Eritrean people deserve better than what the United Kingdom and this government gave their people. And when you ask me why it took time for the Swedish government to become a democracy, well, the concept of democracy took longer to develop maybe in Sweden or in Europe. But the concept is right here. So I don't see the problem of just adapting and building a system based on what we see here. And this system is not perfect, not even close, but it's better than the system that you have in Eritrea, that you represent, and that is giving to the Eritrean people. This democracy might be flawed, it might be biased, it might be racist, but it's something that we can build upon. The basic concepts of democracy does not belong to Europe. It does not belong to the United Kingdom, it does not belong to Sweden, it does not belong to the United States. It belongs to us people. It means power to the people. It means that the government represents the people. It means that the voices of the country is heard, it's amplified by the press, and given a voice by the officials and the politicians representing the government. We don't have to wait. We don't have to build a system for 200 years. We can give the Eritrean people a choice. If they want to do national service, that's the choice of the Eritrean people, not the decision of some men representing the Eritrean government. Eritrea belongs to the Eritrean people. Eritrea does not belong to the Isaias Afwerki. He might be the president of this country, and he might be in power now, but his name will forever be remembered as the person who destroyed Eritrea. And you might be walking away, you might not be looking at us right now, but when democracy prevails, and when justice is in our country, you will be begging for forgiveness, or leaving and fleeing the country. The Eritrean people fought for 30 years for their country. And now they've been fighting for 25 years for democracy. What you are doing is spitting on their lives like they are nothing. But we believe that the Eritrean people are everything. And it is because in our belief that these people deserve better that we've gathered here today. And it's in honor of these journalists, these politicians, these citizens living in Eritrea, standing up against the government and suffering the consequences, that we all here are using the benefits that we have in the United Kingdom to speak up, to write, to demonstrate, to protest, to be a voice for a people whose voices have been silenced, murdered, killed, brutalized, and destroyed. You can support a government, you can work to take their money, but like I said, we will always remember what side of history you were on. And it is easy to support the people in power, but it's not always the right decision. And as history has shown us, in country after country, city after city, and even in religion, that the people fighting for the rights of the people, for themselves, for their peers, for their sisters, for their brothers, for their mothers and fathers, will always prevail. They will always win. And it might take time, and it might take a lot of energy, a lot of time, but because our love for the Eritrean people is so strong, that won't matter at all. We will be here on the 18th of September, the 21st of September, every year. We will demonstrate, we will campaign, we will give it our all until the people of Eritrea get what they deserve. So the Eritrean government are claiming that we can do this by ourselves, that you don't need any other countries to build up Eritrea. At the same time, you're taking deals with foreign governments, renting out land, and giving it to other governments. At the same time, you're saying that the Eritrean people need to work in national service because the Eritrean government needs to be completely independent. National service exists in a lot of countries. In a lot of countries, it's also mandatory. In South Korea, in Israel, and in Finland. But national service indefinitely is unheard of. Because no government who genuinely respects and loves their people would make them suffer under national service indefinitely. And it is because this indefinite national service, it is because of the fear that you bring to these people. It is because of the dictatorship that you became 16 years ago, this week, 16 years ago, that over 5,000 people are fleeing your country every month. You can claim that Eritrea needs to be independent, but that's not your choice to make. It is the people giving their lives for your country. It is the people working their whole lives, giving up their youth, giving up their careers, giving up their families to work for you that get to decide if they think that's worth it or not. It's not my decision, it's not your decision, because all of us who are here right now are living in the United Kingdom. We're living in Europe. All the Eritreans who are not in Eritrea, all the diaspora Eritreans, we're all privileged because we have dual citizenship. We can say whatever we want about Eritrea and still take the bus home, still go to Sainsbury's to get food. We can go home and we can have electricity in our homes. We can go home and then we go to work in the morning and then we go to university in the morning. We have these privileges, which we need to acknowledge while talking about the situation in our country. I'm saying that it's up to the people of Eritrea to choose what they want to do with their own lives. You cannot say, as citizens and as nationals living in another country, that they need to give up their lives while you are living comfortably in your own. That is a privilege, and that is something that they need to acknowledge. Our history is complex. We had a war for 30 years. 1/3 of the population left the country. They all had children. Some of you stayed in Eritrea, and they're still living there. Some of them left. There's no single thing as an Eritrean person. Some of us are born in Sweden. Some of us are still living in Eritrea. Some of them are fleeing right now. Some of them just came. Some of you came 40 years ago. We're all Eritreans. But the people that are currently living in Eritrea are the only ones who can decide if it's worth giving up their lives for their country.
Who wants to talk? Huh? Does anyone want to talk?
Down, down, dictator!
Down, down, dictator!
Down, down, dictator! Down, down, dictator! Down, down, dictator!
Down, down, dictator!
Down, down, dictator!
Down, down, dictator!
Down, down, dictator!
Down, down, dictator!
Where is justice?
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 Where is freedom?
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 Where
justice?
Where is the justice?
Where is the justice?
We want the justice.
We want the justice.
We want the justice.
We want the justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
When do we want it?
Now.
When do we want it?
Now.
We want justice.
We want justice.
We want freedom.
We want freedom.
We want democracy.
We want democracy.
We want justice.
We want democracy.
We want freedom.
We want freedom.
We want freedom.
We want freedom.
These people, I can't even remember what I did 6 years ago. Because I was only 5 years old. But in 16 years, my life has changed back and forth. I've moved to different countries. I've met new people. I've seen technology evolve to a level I never thought was going to be possible. We have AIDS through iPhones somehow. We have seen the world change, develop, and these journalists, these politicians have missed all of it. They have missed developments that they could have achieved. They have missed opportunities that they could have taken opportunity up. They have missed seeing their children grow up, go to school, become adults. They have missed 16 years of their lives. So even if your reasons are political, even if your reasons are based on the concept of national security, never forget that these people have people who love them, who miss them, and who care for them. We're here representing these 10 journalists, politicians, citizens who have been imprisoned in Eritrea for 16 years. Some more and some less. Some have been imprisoned only this year, some were imprisoned last year. But the Eritrean government continues to be a police state where you continue to imprison every single person openly criticizing your policies and your own politics. We are here because we want to show you that even though you've done everything in your power to silence the Eritrean people, we will never kneel down. We will never be afraid, and we will never stop fighting for the rights of the Eritrean people living in Eritrea, for the Eritrean people living in the diaspora who've been forced to flee. No matter how much you try, no matter how much you seem to want to be the most closed, the most oppressive government on not only your continent, but almost across the world, you will never succeed in silencing the Eritrean people. Because the Eritrean people are powerful people. We're people who fought for our own independence against one of the biggest countries on the continent. We're people who don't kneel down. A people that deserve to be treated better than what you have done to them so far. The Eritrean people deserve justice, they deserve freedom, and they deserve liberty. On this date 16 years ago, my uncle Dayo was imprisoned in Eritrea. For 16 years he has not seen his wife, his daughter Abi, because when he was in prison, his wife was 7 months pregnant with his second child. When his second child was born, my uncle was still in the prison in the capital city. My uncle has not seen his own daughter. His daughter has never met her own father. What you've done to this country is despicable. You've separated separated friends, you've separated colleagues, you've separated neighbors, you have separated people from the people that they love. And you've separated journalists, politicians, and normal people from their purpose. See, in a country, if you get a functioning country with a functioning economy, you let the people do what they love, what they want to do, what they think they can do the best. It is only then that you can have a successful country. By imprisoning people whose purpose was to fight and work as journalists or as politicians, you're removing assets to the Eritrean people. By forcing people to serve indefinitely in the military service, you're putting them away from the opportunities and the careers that they could have had, that they could have contributed with to their country. What you're doing is undescribable. It's hard for me to even understand what the purpose of all of this is, if it's not to destroy the Eritrean country. A lot of your supporters seems to have something wrong with their idea of Pan-Africanism or post-colonialism. We don't want Eritrea to be a colony of another country. We don't want countries to come and occupy and take over our land and our natural resources. But the alternative that you're giving them is not the answer. The only answer to what you're doing is that you want to assert the power of the president so he can assert the power of you. People supporting your government do it because they have reasons in Eritrea that keep them away from protesting against you. They have houses, they have a family, they have assets that they want to keep. What you're doing is selfish and it's greedy. Because deep down, every single one of you know the truth. You know what happened 16 years ago. You know who these people are. You know exactly who these people sitting right here, who we are representing, the politicians that were imprisoned, you know who they are. You know their families. Because you fought with them for an independent, democratic, and just Eritrea. But you're clinging on to power. You're clinging on to your positions because
نحنا خام نفترات حزنا نتنا سنت قوينا أنا حواتنا أحاتنا أديتاتنا أبوتاتنا نناس سنت كفلو نموائل تقاليسهم حالفهم لنا يوم كوينو آنيخ عنقل آنيخ كلي آنيخ عنبب آنيخ محاريو كوينو قن آنيخ سدري تغيرو انت منتاي يحواتنا أحاتنا أديتاتنا أبوتاتنا تسوؤلو ببحتي ناي وحدات سبات تجزئاتنا برار لا إرترا هو نحنا إرتراويان دليتنا فتحيو دليتنا بلسكتي إرترا خنرئيو دليتنا أحاتن حواتن تحاوخلو هاجر نخن مسرتي حرنتنا نخرجاجتي عبدا سعزي أم عليها زي بلوم حواتن عدتاتن أو بطاتن عياتاتن أو أسربيتي وليلو نذا جرات أحاي السلام نذا تنفاسني عالم رخيمنا يا زلنا حجين يغريو كندي هنتايلو كندي يلمنلو نكذابيرو وحدات نيرترا دي وكلو نيرترا جين عبد الحامد تيومالو نحنا جين دليتنا ديمقراسي أبي إرترا نخسفنيو دليتنا عدين أبو مردم تحقلو نيشتو أب عدو أب حقروز عندرلو ኤርትራ ንዕቤት ዝፅዕበላ ውላድታ ንሱ ኢና ንምነ ዘለና
Years ago, the hope of the Eritrean people died. 16 years ago was the 10-year anniversary of the Eritrean independence. In 1991, Eritrea became an independent country, and the hope was born. They said that, sure, democracy will come, sure, we will have an election, but just wait a couple years. 2001 was the year that the election was supposed to happen. It was the year that the Eritrean people were going to decide what kind of government they wanted, what kind of policies they wanted to be implemented, what kind of country they wanted to live in. But a week after 9/11, when no one was watching a tiny country in the Horn of Africa, the Eritrean government took opportunity, shut down the free press, imprisoned journalists, imprisoned politicians who have demanded democracy, and completely shut down all hope of the Eritrean people. For 16 years, these people have been imprisoned. For 16 years, these people have been kidnapped. For 16 years, we have been waiting. My aunt have waited 16 years for her husband to come home. My cousins have waited 16 years to see their father. My friends have waited 16 years to see their parents. Whatever your reason is, whatever basis you have for your actions, there is no excuse to the illegal actions that you have committed. All of you are here, you're working here, but you're representing the Eritrean government. You're benefiting and you're taking opportunities that you are refusing your own people. Every time you speak up for the government, you are expressing your opinion. You are expressing yourself. That is freedom of expression. Every time I disagree with you, every time you disagree with me, that is us using a right that we have here that is called freedom of expression. These people are not agents. These people are not running the errands of the West. These people were simply asking questions. They were demanding something that you all had promised and fought for during the War of Independence. Democracy was always a part of the deal. Because what is independence? What is sovereignty when there is no freedom? What is independence? What does it even mean to be independent, to have independence? When the people of Eritrea are not free. The people of Eritrea are living in a prison state where they're not free to express their opinions, free to go to university, free to do whatever they want. So every single person working for the embassy, every single person supporting the government, and every single person claiming to be neutral is aiding a government, being complicit. A government that is oppressing the people. We are here because we say that enough is enough. 16 years is too time. 16 years is a long, long time. And for 16 years, these journalists, these politicians, and these civilians have been in prison. You working in the embassy have a responsibility towards your people, not to your career and not to your boss and not to the president that you are working for. You can have your opinions about policies, you can have your opinions about ideologies, but at the end of the day, you are living here. You are living in England, in London, so your opinions and your ideas about what's going to happen in Eritrea does not actually affect you. It affects Eritreans living in Eritrea. It affects all of our relatives. It affects people living there suffering, who do not even have a choice and an opportunity to speak up for themselves and for what they want to do with their lives. We are speaking up for these people because we can, because we should. We're speaking up because it is our duty, not only some of us as Eritreans, some of us as British people, some of us of other countries, because it is our responsibility to our fellow human beings to speak up for them when they cannot do so themselves. When the tools and platforms that they have used before has been taken away from them, it is our opportunity here living in their life 16 years because their love for the Eritrean people were stronger. It was stronger than their love for comfortableness. Being comfortable, simply standing by and supporting is very easy. But these people did not take the easy route. These people decided to stand up. So for the last time, I'm going to say these names. But we will be back. We will always be back. We will always keep fighting. And we will never, ever, 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 ever stop fighting, because our people, the Eritrean people, deserve better. Siyom Tahaya, Joshua Yohannes, Said Abdelkar, Aman Al-Asraf, Daoud Abdemikel, Mateo Sabtab, Mithan Ayla, Daoud Isak, Yusuf Mohammed Ali, 10 journalists, 10 human beings whose sacrifice will always be remembered, whose names forever will be remembered, and whose work will always continue to inspire Eritreans, citizens, human beings in support of human rights. Thank you so much to everyone who's come today in the rain, everyone who's been sitting down and representing these journalists, the people who've been listening on the streets. My name is Vanessa Berha. I'm an Eritrean human rights activist. My uncle has today been imprisoned for 16 years without a trial. We are here because we are demanding the release of these journalists. We are here because we're demanding an election in the country. We are here because we want the people of Eritrea to decide their own lives, their own future. We are here because our people deserve better. Thank you very, very, very much.